And I'm going to start the record. Just making sure that the live stream comes up. It's loading. And I'm going to start the record. Okay, we're good to go.
All right, well, welcome everybody that's early to our session and already in the room. What we have for you is just a question. What is your level of energy today? And so to do this, we're going to use the annotate feature, and I'll be repeating this again once our session actually starts. But for you early birds, I wanted to give you a little bit of time. So if you look at your toolbar, there should be a little pencil icon that says annotate. And if you click that, it should give you the option to find a stamp. So find your stamp. I want you to pick your shape. I'm going to do a little heart. And for me, I am at the 100% level because I had a lot of caffeine. Plus, I'm just pumped. I'm pumped from our opening speakers. I'm pumped from all the learning from these last 2 days. I could even put mine over here, actually. I'm maybe a little bit beyond 100%. I'm fully charged and ready to go. So I invite all of you. It should be open. Now, if for some reason it's not open for you, feel free to just put it in the chat. So I'll give you all you early birds a second to stamp your energy level, and I'll repeat these directions once our session starts. So if you just joined us, the question is, what's your energy level? And the annotate feature has been open, so you can feel free to annotate or put it in the chat. Yeah, the toolbar might look different for you. We tried to enable it. Admittedly, some of you might not have the toolbar option. And if you don't see that little pencil icon to annotate, then you can always put your response, your percentage in the chat.
Perfect. Please do not flash me like that.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Ron.
Good morning, Ron.
75%, but it's already 4 p.m. in Switzerland. Well, I have to say, you're doing really well for being still at 75%.
Agnes, welcome.
At 4 o'clock, I'm usually down at 25.
75%. I love that people are also adding where they are. So that's always so nice to see. Agnes, you and I are in the same time zone. I am joining everybody from Germany. So it's 4 o'clock here as well. I have to say, I am definitely charging. Just like Sherry, I'm so excited to be here with you all to talk about momentum through multiple means.
You're not going to be able to sleep tonight, Beth.
Nope, not after all those gummy bears. Definitely not. My celebratory gummy bears to get me.
So it's 4 o'clock in Germany?
Mm-hmm. So it was either that or a latte.
All right, well, welcome everybody. I have that it's 10 o'clock on my time, on session time. And so we're going to go ahead and get started. If you were early, you were maybe able to answer in the chat what your energy level is, sharing your percentage. And we also encourage you to share where you're from, because we realize it's different times of day for some of you, and that might have an impact on your energy level. For those of you that do have the annotate option on your toolbar, there should be a little pencil icon. So we're inviting you to click on that and find your stamp. I chose a heart stamp. And if you're able to do it, just stamp your energy level on the screen. If you're not, go ahead and continue to put it in the chat and share where you're from. 11 a.m. in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Well, welcome.
Welcome. I have to say the clock behind me, I had to disable because it sounds like there's a bomb that's about to go off when it hits the hour mark. So you can see that it's a working cuckoo clock, but it's pretty powerful. So I'm just digital today.
Welcome, everyone. We'll give this another minute because we still have people entering the waiting room. And I see that Neil is doing a really good job of letting them in really quickly.
Yes, thank
We
you,
are using the
Neil.
annotate feature to share our energy level. And then also in the chat, we invite you to share where you're from. I used the stamp. So we encourage you to use the stamp feature and stamp where you are. I have to say, after listening to our Carrie, right, hearing a principal and sharing her story, and then Michael, I've never been so excited. I'm going to go back and listen.
Oh, you muted. Oops.
What probably happened is when you let people in, if you let them in too much, I accidentally muted someone yesterday, but I was just sharing that the opening speakers really got me charged. Like I was already charged for my caffeine, and I'm extra charged and ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and clear this. Thank you for everybody that is participating and has participated. I'm going to clear all the, well, you know what? I just saw some popping up, so I'll give it one more minute. Thank you. Thank you for stamping your energy level. And I think I'm not alone, right? I think the speakers have charged all of you as well. Nice. Okay, well, I will clear all drawings now, and I will close annotate. And I just want to welcome everybody. Welcome everyone that has joined the room to our session.
So, and I want to also welcome everybody to our session. I'm Beth Stark, and my co-host and co-chairperson of the UDL IRN Implementation Special Interest Group is here as well, Sherry Smith, who is an implementation guru in her own right. And we want to share a little bit about a model that we have fused together to achieve our goal. And we truly believe that UDL is our shared path to an equitable future for all global citizens. So thank you to everyone who's also shared their locations. It's lovely to see that we have a group from all over the world. So I'm joining you here from Dresden, Germany, which is where I call home. And Sherry, where are you joining us from?
I'm joining from Ohio, where I'm part of State Support Team 6. We're regional support, but I'm also a part of the UDL Collaborative in Ohio. I love to collaborate around UDL. And then, as Beth said, the co-chair for the UDL IRN Implementation 6. So I think we have a link for that on our session page. And I know Neil will drop that, Neil or Beth will drop that in the chat if you want to check it out. We encourage you to do so.
And we want to start off with one of our favorite quotes from Mike Murata, who is an adaptive and assistive technology guru, and he is a co-author of Inclusive Learning 365. And that is that UDL is not a special ed thing or even a general ed thing. It is just an ed thing. And since, of course, we're all lifelong learners, that opens up a Pandora's box about how we can make sure that UDL is not just alive in chosen classrooms and lecture halls, but really spreads its wings and makes it into all learning environments.
All right. And an important part of our session today is helping you become advocates and really create readiness for change. So no matter where you are in your UDL journey, you can create readiness for change. I loved hearing the superintendent talk about, Carrie, talk about their journey. And we've even talked to schools who felt like maybe they were past that they already had created readiness for change. But I just urge you to remember that your work is not done, right? There's always ways to build awareness. I think a question I saw come in the chat was, is everybody, expected to get the UDL credentialing? And I hope her answer is yes. If you want everyone to be proficient in UDL and really understand to be able to advocate that, then yeah. So to create readiness for change, we want to build awareness, and then you want to build momentum. You want to get people excited. So you need to find a way to really get them excited and fueled by your cause. That's part of creating that readiness. And you'll need that fuel to carry you through all the stages of implementation. And also you want to be able to help them recognize the need for change. Change is hard. And so you really need to take some time to build that. We're going to talk about that a little bit more today. One way that we have been trying to build readiness for change is to work on our elevator pitch. So an elevator pitch is just what it sounds. It's a quick way to share your message in, I would say 30 seconds or less, depending on the elevator. If you're going all the way to the top floor, right, you might have more time.
This one says skyscraper elevator pitch. Yeah,
we're
for
assuming
sure.
that we have a lot of time on the elevator here because we really want to capture all those elements in our elevator pitch. And so there's different ways to do it. We chose a template and a way to craft an elevator pitch that comes from Daniel Pink's Pixar pitch. And in that he gives you, and you're welcome to take this, right? Use this for your own elevator pitch. He gives you sentence frames, just like you're telling a story, like a Pixar movie, right? So here today, we are going to read our Pixar pitch for you. So it goes a little something like this. Once upon a time, learning occurred in separate spaces. People, places, learning materials, they were siloed. Beliefs about learners were also siloed.
Every day, students would enter their schools and learning classrooms according to a predetermined estimate of their ability. Someone else was deciding their potential and organizing them as such. Students would come to school or not be able to because the people in charge of learning had decided how to organize them into silos. Some silos got very little air and sunlight, while others were allowed for limitless growth. This was also controlled by the people in charge of learning.
One day, brilliant minds created the UDL framework, which is based on cognitive neuroscience and designed to remove barriers to learning, creating environments where all students can be empowered to meet their own potential, thus tipping over those silos to create learning spaces where all learners could have what they need to grow and thrive.
And because of that, the UDL IRN implementation special interest group rallied around advocacy and awareness of UDL, and the multiple means movement began.
Because of that, UDL was spread across the world into homes, into classrooms, into communities.
Until finally, all learners could truly engage in a learning environment that supported their human right to equitable access and engagement in high quality education, which contributed to their own self-agency and growth into members of a global society. So we really want to encourage everyone to think about how to frame their beliefs and their enthusiasm about UDL in a fun and fanciful way that is going to be a hook for other people. And then, of course, linking that to the fundamentals. And we know as advocates and enthusiasts of UDL that these words ring true, that being oppressed means the absence of choices. And so if we want to use UDL as a framework and a system to liberate learning for everyone worldwide, we really have to find ways to not just act upon that, but to communicate that. So you see over to the left, this is a very famous stairway that is considered to be a work of art. And hopefully that will always go down in history as something beautiful, but very much a relic. We want to redefine design and the beauty of design to be design that is, of course, inspired and really created using the principles of universal design. And so we want to redefine what education looks like through UDL.
All right. So then we got this idea for the multiple means movement, and we wanted to build momentum, right? We need momentum. We need people to understand what UDL really is. And so I want you to think, who else needs to know about UDL? Who do you come in contact with every day that needs to know about UDL? Do teachers need to know? Hopefully, if teachers need to know, or if the teachers around you know, then who else? And how can we all act as advocates? So Beth and I started to think about, what are the possibilities here? If the parents in my community listen to Allison Posey's message yesterday, right? If they understood that maybe when they went through school, it doesn't have to be like that today. And looking at a bulletin board full of student examples shouldn't be, those examples and those abilities that are displayed in that one way shouldn't determine our expectations for our students, right? There are multiple ways that we can show what we know, that we should be invited to be able to engage in our learning. Thinking of our presenter earlier today, so charged about his talk on, creating spaces. If teachers aren't empowered, if teachers don't know that they can do that, and parents don't know to do that, and students don't know to do that, how are we going to gain momentum? So just think about those questions throughout our presentation today.
And so I noticed in the chat, many people were dropping in, who needs to know the answer to the question that Sherry posed, who needs to know about UDL? And we heard, yeah, the students, the admin, all of the teachers, the parents, yes. And beyond just those stakeholders in every learning community, we also have other groups of people, politicians, civil servants, people who are running businesses that have a say in the way that money is allocated for education. There are many people in our community that are not aware of the importance of UDL. And, if we think back to all of the different acronyms that we have now learned about and really internalized in the past few years, UDL is no different. It can make its way into our social conversations and really be seen as a tool for change. But it needs advocates, and it needs people like you and like me and like Sherry to really start defining ourselves as advocates. But we know that oftentimes advocates start off with a lot of intensity, and they're really they're really excited about their cause. And then if they aren't able to build momentum, they move on to another cause. So one way to protect ourselves, from kind of petering out in our advocacy work is to really define our role in the ecosystem of social change. And so we're sharing a wonderful map and a way to find yourself in this ecosystem map that was developed by lawyer and self-proclaimed social activist Deepa Iyer. And you're going to see yourself in many of these roles. But the idea behind this is to figure out which one of these roles gives you personally the most energy. Because you want to build momentum. So you want to choose a pathway that is really going to be kind of I think you call it a catch wheel or a catch fly. Somebody correct me here, where you're building momentum and not feeling depleted. So moving forward.
Yeah, so in looking at all those roles that Beth was just sharing, I don't know if you've ever met Brian Dean. He's very popular in the UDL community because of his loud suits and just electrifying personality. So I thought of him immediately when I saw disruptor, because to me, he seemed like such a disruptor. He wanted to find a system that wasn't working and he wanted to disrupt it and he wanted to make it better for all students. I mean, that's what I got when I listened to him. And so I went to his social media page and I love that he's a positive deviant on there, right? I mean, because that is him. So I reached out to him and I asked, do you see yourself as a disruptor? Which of these do you see as your role? And it wasn't disruptor, but he did give this quote that if anyone were to call me a disruptor, it would be because of the combination of the other terms I use to identify and guide my work. Ultimately, I like to see how I can break and rebuild what we've always done into something new and purposeful. And so to me, I was like, well, yeah, you're a disruptor, but what other people see you and what fuels you might be different. And so I wanted to share that example. And then also, I couldn't help today and yesterday think, well, Allison Posey, what a wonderful storyteller. And I think we need storytellers. I feel like if I could record that and share that message with all the parents I come into contact with, what a great way to be an advocate. So we need people in every role. And like Beth says, we want you to be fueled by your role.
Absolutely. And the more we know about ourselves, the more that we can aim for being the best expert learners we can be. And so we want you to take a little time. You can either go solo and stay with us here, or you can choose to join the breakout room. And what you're going to have to work with is first the Jamboard, where you can go through each role and post your thoughts about it. You can also read the definitions of, I should say the descriptions of each of these roles in the social change ecosystem. One is not better than the other. They're all important. So it's about finding your place and choosing which role that you can really embrace as an advocate of UDL. So we're going to go ahead and give you a little bit of time now. I think about 5 minutes or so.
Yeah, let's do 5 minutes.
Okay.
And okay, so if you don't want to join and you're put in a room, I apologize. You can just select not to join. And then for some reason, if you want to be in a room with someone and you didn't get with anyone, please come back and I'll try to reassign you. Okay, so all the rooms are open now.
And the Sherry, can you hear me? And the Jamboard has the links on the first page as well.
Great. Yeah. And if Neil could put the link to the Jamboard in the chat for folks too.
I think he's.
Yep, it should be there for you. Okay, hopefully you can link right to the Jamboard.
Oh dear, too many people. Thanks for letting us know, Christina. I'm so sorry.
just post a site that'll give you some more information on
Brilliant.
social change. So if you're getting locked out of the Jamboard, there's a multiple means so that you can get in and read more about it.
Thanks,
Thank you
Neil.
so much, Neil. That's great. Yeah, and the change roles are listed there. That's super. Thanks.
We have about 2 minutes left. I don't know if you want me to share my screen of the Jamboard. Maybe that might be helpful.
Yeah, sure. I think we're doing pretty well on time, Sherry. Let's go for it. And everyone
Yeah.
comes back.
You know, and I will continue to scroll through to see what people are adding. Storytellers. This is where I'm going to say, I'm going to say Allison. Oops. There we go. Allison Posey, for sure. I know it's not answering the question.
Doesn't matter.
I wonder if she is fueled by this. To me, I think she's a great advocate because of the stories she tells. Let's see if we had any other comments on guides. There's one. Creative problem solving is my favorite process in the UDO process. It can be time consuming and hardworking, but beautiful. Oh, I love it.
It's great.
We need these in our work. We need healers.
Mhm.
We need healers for sure, because there are still, there's much injustice. There are people that think, back to Allison's story, that because their handwriting isn't good, or they're not good at drawing, or they have spelling errors, that they're not smart. And that breaks my heart. It just breaks my heart. Having compassion for the fear of change UDL can bring. Yeah. Yeah, thank you. We need those caregivers. Yes. Building PD that models UDL strategies and practices. Exactly. Someone sees himself as a builder, and we need that PD. We need PD that people can engage in multiple ways, right? I believe Carrie Wozniak is one of these, a visionary. Yes. This combined with visionary is so important. Need the big picture and the action and resources. No, are all of our breakout rooms are going to close in 21 seconds. So hopefully if you weren't able to see, you know, I tried to read through some, or if you weren't able to join and add.
I think we have a little bit of time that people might be able to share after the breakout rooms.
Okay, great. Well, it looks like everyone is back, and we're sorry if you were not able to participate in the Jamboard. We were kind of scrolling through to see comments that were posted on each of these. And it was so great to see them. So we can make sure that we share this. If you're interested, just contact us. And then I guess we have a few minutes to open it up to see, are there any comments or any ahas? Are you really connecting with one of these roles? Feel free to unmute your mic. All right. Well, without further ado, I think we're back to you. I'm trying to present. Here we go, Beth. I think there we go.
Oh, that's great. Okay, thanks, Sherry. And thank you. We understand that it was just a little snapshot. that, this is an activity that we hope that you take with you and reflect about which role gives you energy and which role do you really want to identify with. I know that there are many roles that I really admire and see those qualities in other people. But those are roles that those are actions that just deplete me. So it really goes back to the idea that everyone has value in the ecosystem. So, what do you do then? After you have kind of a clear profile or tendency as an advocate that you've identified as what fuels you, the next step, of course, is to develop a goal. And so we borrowed this concept from a really famous business consultant, Jim Collins. He's written a lot of book about thriving in the business world. And he created this concept called the Big, Hairy, Audacious Goal, or BHAG for short. And you'll recognize several of these, especially Microsoft's BHAG, which is a computer on every desk and in every home. Tesla, transportation as reliable as running water, everywhere for everyone. Google, organize the world's information, and Evernote, remember everything. So all of these BHAGs have something in common, a few things. They're very clear, simple, and to the point, but they're incredibly audacious. They're going to take at least a decade to really quote unquote accomplish or realize. And they're supposed to get everyone enthused, but a little bit overwhelmed. That's why it's audacious. So you're really stretching yourself to your outer limits when you're making a BHAG. But if, of course, that's, kind of the point on the horizon that you're always striving towards in your other goal setting. So Sherry and I have actually created a BHAG for our movement. It's very straightforward. And so Sherry, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Yeah, sure. Our BHAG is on the screen. Make UDL universally accessible, right? It kind of goes back to that. If UDL was in every classroom and every home, but we want people to understand it. And sometimes it's not accessible. I shared this in my other session that I trained on UDL a lot on the framework. And the framework was written so that it would be teacher friendly. But I was training teachers who said, "You're very lovely, but you speak in riddles." And I was just training on the UDL framework and giving them classroom examples. So we want it to be accessible. We want it to be accessible and understood by the teacher, the parent, the student. We want it out there in other languages, right? Like we want everybody to understand UDL so that they can be fueled and excited by it. And we want you to think about, how does your role play into that BHAG, right? As a storyteller, as a visionary, as a weaver, how does that relate?
And connecting to what Sherry was just saying about her role, finishing a professional learning experience with a group of teachers and them looking at her a bit puzzled, like, we want to understand, but we don't. And, looking, at this group that we have here, and I just feel like, we're all so united in our enthusiasm for UDL or our curiosity about UDL. But, moving outside of that collection, that beehive of people that have open minds and are excited about UDL, taking a moment to reflect on what are those barriers and how can we push ourselves forward as societies and learning communities to make sure that other people understand what we're talking about. I know, for example, I work in an international school here in Germany, and I have for many years, and we have teachers from all over the world that come and work at our school whose pedagogical training is just all over the place, very, very diverse. And, the ideas about the role of people, who have disabilities, and their roles in societies have been shaped by a lot of different factors that are very unusual to people who have been raised in the United States. And so the idea of really building readiness for people who are from other cultures or who are non-native speakers of English really has to go down to making it as accessible and user-friendly as possible. Because I know when I try to engage with some people on the conversation of the idea of place and sharing space and place with learners of all different, backgrounds and, I don't like to use the word ability or disability necessarily, but that people with disabilities belong in the same spaces as our neurotypical learners. We have to have those conversations and weave UDL into those conversations. But the language that I know and love that describes UDL is not accessible to many of the other people who see themselves as very well educated educators. So how can we not just simplify it, because we don't want to oversimplify it, but how can we reduce those barriers for effective communication?
Right. And, so sometimes if you're thinking now, well, what is my goal? I don't know what my BHAG would be. That's okay. And it could start with naming the barriers. So
Yes.
at one of the UDL IRN implementation SIG meetings this year, we had sort of a brainstorming session around that. And the link is on our site. I think we're going to put it in the chat for you so you can access our barriers around hearts and minds, organizational cultures, systems, procedures, and structures. And so where do you see yourself? Are you encountering any one of those barriers? That might inform your BHAG. Maybe your barrier is just really personal and it's the teacher you co-teach with. Or it's an educator who thinks that UDL is just for students with disabilities. We all are going to encounter barriers, and that might really inform our next steps. And our big, hairy, audacious goal might just be helping people understand. It might be changing hearts and minds. It might be changing a mindset. If you're a district leader, if you're a state leader, your barriers might look a little different. But we really want to make sure that we're trying to communicate connections with other social justice movements. We're weavers. Beth and I are kind of weavers, we've decided. So we're trying to weave it in where it makes sense. UDL fits here. UDL can help, and here's why. We want to help the people around us have a shared understanding. We know that UDL has specific language and that there's a certain complexity that comes with it. And we want them to be able to access ongoing learning and support. So those are some of the barriers or some of the big ideas that are kind of connected to the barriers from our session that we use to inform our BHAG.
Yeah, and we have some time now for you to kind of step back and look at, we're going to drop the link. Thank you so much, Neil. You've been so amazing with dropping the links at the exact right time. And so you just dropped the link to a list of barriers that our special interest group kind of crowdsourced together. And in order to go on to the next step, which is, dive into your role, name a barrier, and then develop a goal, it's really good to pace yourself. And if you need to just stay focused on the barrier piece for now, that's great. But we wanted to give you some quiet solo time to reflect. And then in just a few minutes, we're going to let people go ahead and add a barrier that they see as something they want to reduce in the chat. You can do that actually spontaneously now, or open up your mics and feel free to share. We're not that big of a group. Any barriers that you see that you can have an impact on and reduce through your chosen role. And we're at about the halfway mark as well. So if this is a time that you want to step away, get a glass of water and reflect on those barriers, please feel free to do that as well. great. It's so good to see some of your ideas popping up in the chat. And I'm going to go ahead and read a few out loud. Super. Okay, so Lisa Paisley, thank you. Understanding at all levels is one of our barriers, and also maybe a hearts and minds issue of worrying about student accountability. Yeah, and having those hard conversations about empowerment and, expert learning when it comes to accountability and sharing power. All right, Ron Rogers, big fan. Ron Rogers, thanks for being here. Under number 2, it would be UDL not connected to other professional focuses by school leaders. Sherry and I were just talking about that, about how UDL is a container for all of the other evidence-based better practices of trauma-informed practices, culturally responsive teaching, identity-centered learning, and how if it could be used as a container for everything, or that people might really be more open to embrace it, not as another initiative. Yeah, okay. PD overload, that is definitely a barrier. Thank you, Kimberly. Identifying, defining it as another new thing. Yeah, figuring out a story that we can tell about UDL to really help to clarify the system skills and beliefs as something much larger and much more of a capacity builder, as opposed to just another layer of better practice to integrate into our teaching. Super. And please feel free to open up your mics. And oh, Ron, I'm sorry, I have to pitch one more that you put in the chat. When UDL isn't named in national or district policy, ding, ding, ding. I do want to state that UDL is named in policy that is written by the United Nations about every child's right and human right to an inclusive education. So if we could just take our props from the United Nations at the national and local level, we would be on the right track. All right, so please feel free to open up your mics if you'd like to share any barriers that you identified. Yes, UDL and ESSA. Thank you, Neil. It's there.
Yep, it's there. All right, ready to move on?
Yes, let's go for it.
Oh gosh, I'm at the wrong slide. It kept my mouse kept jumping around to the other slides, as you can do in Canva. Oh, went too far. There we go.
Super. Okay. So we've talked about our role in the ecosystem, and we've talked about this idea of really identifying a barrier that we can really have an impact on when it comes to reducing and removing over time with our BHAG, our big, hairy, audacious goal that we're going to set, that plays into the multiple means movement BHAG, which is making UDL universally accessible. So the next step is to create a goal that is SMART. If you like SMART goals, go for it. We thought that this model of goal setting is a bit more flexible and maybe a little bit more sustainable over time. So this idea of setting a PACT goal is choosing a goal that is purposeful, actionable, continuous, and trackable, which I really like. I think that the word trackable in this sense is really much more user-friendly than this idea of taking data and feeding that data back to whether or not you're making progress, but instead just saying, look, I'm keeping track of my progress. And that's how I'm going to maintain momentum.
All right, so I'll share my example, then I'll let Beth share hers. For me, this is, I don't know, maybe my 6th year at the UDL Iron Summit. I can't count. But I think it was my very first summit. I went to a session where they were talking about like having UDL in law and how powerful that would be, and having that be a real focus. And I thought, yeah, I totally agree. But that's not for me. That's not my role. And now I'm living the results of that. I'm living the consequences of that. And especially in Ohio, we've seen a number of things passed that is really causing schools to look at their practices and put some changes in place. We had some movement in dyslexia, PBIS, attendance, graduation, and it's causing schools to really look at what they're doing. And guess what we're missing? Universal design for learning. And, I felt that, because if I'm not doing it, who am I expecting to do that? Who else in my state is going to know more about UDL and education, right? Than somebody who is training, right? And UDL. And I'm not saying I'm the only one. This is a call to action for anybody from my state who's here, which I know you're here. I see you. And I'm going to be bringing this message back to our state. So I really thought, this is my barrier, and I've let it happen, right? I've let it grow. We're not seeing movement in this area. There's misunderstanding across the board. There's even people in our state that don't want to hear UDL. It's a bad word. How did we let this happen? Because UDL is beautiful. The idea behind UDL is uplifting and amazing, and it's something, right? It's a human rights idea. All students deserve it. They all deserve to experience UDL and to be provided an environment where they can become an expert learner, an advocate, lifelong learner, right? So that was my barrier. I named it. It's not an Ohio law yet. And I'm a weaver, as I said before. And so I've just made it my calling. I mean, that's what fuels me. I'd like to make connections for people. So I'm going to weave it into whatever I can. And luckily, I'm a part of a group at Ocali that has an advocate there, and they're already advocating for things that are at the courthouse. And so I have a connection I can weave, right? So I want it to become part of Ohio law. I want it to be required to be used in all classrooms. And I hate to use the word required, but sometimes people don't know what they don't know. And this can be a way to open their eyes and see that it is important. And not just in tests, like it's mentioned in ESSA, a lot around tests. Yes, we want tests we want students to be able to show what we know, but we want them to be able to learn that way and engage. And what about the expert learner? So I started, thinking, okay, what are some steps? Well, I'm going to meet with the director of Ocali, and we're going to talk to that advocate. And I've already done that. Every time I'm a part of a group where I can weave UDL in, I'm going to connect it to our literacy work. I'm going to connect it to our MTSS work, because there are strong connections. And if you do have that foundation, it won't feel like one more thing, which was another barrier. So that's sort of where I'm coming from. And I am embarrassed it took me this long to get there. So I'm also a part of the one that Beth is going to share as well, because that's our SID, right? So I'll let her talk about that.
Oh, Sherry, I just want to say, don't be embarrassed. What you have revealed the big secret, which is there is not, a team of well-paid lobbyists on the steps of, the legislative houses across the US or the world that are, rallying and schmoozing and negotiating with politicians to make this UDL part of policy and legislation. Those people are us. We have to be the agents of change to make these things happen. And every ecosystem, has people who can connect with their strength and what brings them energy, and then stretch their own outer limits by creating a BHAG. And so I am just inspired by you, Sherry. I'm super excited to see you realize this BHAG, because I believe you can do it. I am way over here in Dresden, Germany, and I have been an IB, International Baccalaureate educator, for many years. And the system skills and beliefs of UDL are peppered all throughout the inclusion manual for all the continuum of programs that are offered by the IB. So EYP, PYP, MYP, DP, and CP. Lots of initials, sorry, and acronyms. But you will never see Universal Design for Learning in any other documents, and it's not offered explicitly in any other training that the IB offers. Only one course and one section of one course about inclusive learning. I took that course, and guess who was there? People just like me. Learning support coordinators, people with a special education background. The people who were not there were subject teachers and teachers that were in other courses to enrich their knowledge about their subject matter. So my BHAG, of course, is, or I should say the big BHAG is to make it universally accessible. But my barrier is the fact that IB teachers really don't have access to the knowledge that they should have access to about UDL. And it's not in our documentation. It's not in our, available workshops that we can take. And so I'm a Weaver as well. And I want to build synergy around UDL. And really my goal, my big audacious goal, is to see it be an essential element of training for all teachers in the IB continuum. Because again, it is recognized and supported by the IB, and very little is offered about UDL through the IB. And believe me, there's many things that the IB offers its teachers, and many things are obligatory that we need to learn about. But UDL isn't one of those things, and I want to change that. So I've already started pacting, and I've decided also to take on another role, and that is to apply to become an IB evaluator and content developer. So I could actually play an active role in creating workshops within the IB, which is something before this process, before identifying my role as a Weaver and, really having fun with this idea of, creating a BHAG, I wasn't doing. I had the enthusiasm, I had the belief in UDL, but I didn't have a clear goal. And so now that I do, I can say, quite honestly, I refer to this often, and it just gives me so much energy. I just finished my application to present at an IB Global Conference in October, which is of course going to be about UDL, but it's going to be about the intersection of UDL and inclusive stewardship for global citizens, because I really want to highlight the fact that UDL and an inclusive education is a human right. So we hope that this is inspiring you. We have about 7 minutes, and we want to make sure that you have access to this template. These are the exemplars we wanted to share, but we want you to also make this your own and take some time to also open up and share with us if you have any comments or questions.
Yeah, so you can take this template, you can start working on it right now. Maybe as we were talking, you already clicked on the template and you started putting in your ideas. So we can take another minute to let you open that.
Yeah, and I wanted to quickly answer, IB stands for the International Baccalaureate. So it's just, yeah. You'll oftentimes in the US hear it, the DP, the diploma program, which is a part of the IB. It's often offered in grades 11 and 12 in the US.
I'm glad you like the template. I like it as well. I like that it's a way to kind of get your thoughts down on paper and,
Yeah.
on paper, it's all digital, and really use it to, help you not lose energy and lose focus and feel burnt out, to really use your strength or your role to find momentum, and momentum through multiple means. Is there anyone that would like to mute their mic and share any ideas or thoughts that you're having right now? Feel free to put it in the chat. I've lost my navigation. I'm going to attempt to go to the next slide.
Super.
There, I did it.
Yay.
So we want to build momentum through multiple means. We want to have a multiple means movement. And the UDL-IRN is a good place to start. And if you want to talk all things implementation, we invite you to join our SIG. And so there is a link to our page on the UDL-IRN's website. All of the special interest groups, which is what SIG stands for, special interest group, all of the special interest groups are there. There's a link. You can join and you can really be a part of this movement. We have some really exciting things happening. One of them is we're creating or kind of curating some spaces on the learning design platform. So hopefully, if you're familiar with the UDL-IRN, you're familiar with learning design. And what a wonderful place to collaborate around these ideas. What a wonderful place to start to store and gather these plans and resources around this multiple means movement. It's not quite ready yet, but we're going to be working on it this year. And if you want to be a part of it, if you want to contribute to it, we invite you to join. Would you like to talk about Liliana and her work, Beth?
Yeah, thank you. One of our big goals is to make UDL more accessible worldwide. And so we're trying to reduce the barrier of language. And we have created kind of another special interest group. And we have a wonderful member of our SIG, Liliana Vidal, who has been named the DUA ambassador. So DUA is UDL in Spanish, the acronym. And so she is working to create community around for Spanish speakers to share resources and to make connections around the world. And also hopefully to reduce the barrier of high quality resources in Spanish.
Right. And it is a barrier. And you wouldn't think that it would be, but just the other day, I had someone email me because they had heard about her role, and this person had someone from another country, a Spanish-speaking country, reach out to them and ask them, for more resources, kind of more connections. And I said, this is exactly why we have Liliana. And so we wanted to grow. It's starting in Spanish, but we'd like it to grow. When we first got this, had this idea, there were people from our SIG from really all over the world, which is why we chose the image behind us, because we want it to be universally accessible, right? We want people to understand no matter where you are and have access to these high quality materials. So thank you for joining us today. I'm going to quickly, if I can, go to our page. I thought I had it pulled up, but maybe I didn't. Just to quickly show, oh, that wasn't it. UDL-IRN, there it is. So when you come to our SIG page, it should look like this. You'll recognize this map behind me. You'll see our mission, vision, and values. We will be updating that probably after this year. So if you want to be a part of this work, our next session is June 10th, and we invite all of you to attend. Any other closing thoughts? Beth.
I just want to thank everyone, and also to encourage you to, share the templates, share the concept of really, finding your role in the social change ecosystem. And I also want to say, after you feel comfortable with it, try to scaffold it for your learners. Let's empower the students. And let's see them become their own agents of change in their communities as well, through this system of, learning more about ourselves, becoming, goal setters, and then making progress through the packed goals. So we hope that it's really helped you to embrace a framework and to we hope that you all join us on our quest to build momentum through multiple means. And please feel free. We always love new members. Please feel free to join our upcoming meeting in June. We'd love to see you there.
All right, thanks for joining us today. We have about a minute left for questions if there are any. If not, enjoy the rest of your time at the summit. Thank you, Karen. I love the heart. Kathleen.
Yeah. Thank you, Laura. Yes, more has to be done in French. Let's create a French ambassador for UDL. Please get in touch, Laura. We'd love that. So very little is available in French. Anyone else that is willing to share their talents as translators and help us reduce the barrier of language for UDL, please get in touch. We would love, even if you don't want to join the SIG, we'd love to find a role for you and help you realize your BHAG as well. Thank you for being here. We really feel passionate about this topic, and we're so happy to share it with everyone.
All right. I think we're done.
Thank you, Sherry. Thank you, Beth. That was amazing. So much to think about and so many great resources to take forward.
Great.
Oh, Neil, you were wonderful. Thank you so much for just
Absolutely.
your
Great day.
positivity and your support.
Oh, y'all rocked it.
Great to
We'll be in touch soon. Sherry, I'll try to make that first meeting.
Perfect.
Great.
Awesome.
Oh, great,
Yeah.
Neil. Yay.
Great to see you all. All right. Bye-bye.